Welcome to Power Hour. We are really thrilled to have Kaylin Ferris and Nikki Donnelly here tonight to talk about the lifelong experience of having a sibling with a disability. The Pediatric Epilepsy Surgery Alliance is the only nonprofit organization whose sole focus is serving the community of children anywhere on the epilepsy surgery journey, from the point of drug resistance through surgery, including the transition to adulthood and beyond. We empower our families with research, support services, and impactful programs before, during, and after surgery. Formerly known as the Brain Recovery Project, we are in our 12th year of serving this community. Power Hour sessions are brought to you by our corporate sponsor, UCB, and we are incredibly grateful for their support. Now I'm going to let Nikki and Kaylin take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you for having us. Welcome. We're so happy to be with you here this evening. My name is Nikki Donnelly. I am a board member with California Sibling Leadership Network, and we are under the umbrella of the National Sibling Leadership Network. And we are here tonight to talk about siblings and the impact that being a sibling of somebody with a disability has on our lives, both personally, and a lot of what we share is what the research says. So our co-presenter tonight is Kaylin. You want to say a quick hi?
Sure, I'll pop off mute just to say hello. We'll do some further intros in a minute, but happy to have you all here with us this evening.
Great. All right. With that, we will dive in. So first, what is a SIB? We refer to ourselves as SIBs, short for siblings. And we are the brothers and sisters of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And, that's a very broad umbrella. And we also, anybody that identifies as being a sibling, if you're a cousin, but you grew up in the household maybe, or so forth, if you kind of have that role. We also welcome and so appreciate SIB supporters, whether you're a parent, friend, family members, community member, service providers. We welcome you here. All right. So if you're on live with us, if you want to drop in the chat, how are you connected to the SIB community? And Audrey, if you can call those out for us, I'm not sure if we see them.
All right, great. I will. I'm going to enter mine too, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love you're a fellow SIB.
So don't feel like you have to give us too many personal details, but if you're a SIB, we'd love to know that, or a SIB supporter, maybe a parent or a provider.
All right. Well, while that's going on, shall we hop over to the next one? So while you're typing that in, so why think about SIBs? Why are we even, here tonight talking about this? So, we don't have accurate numbers of how many of us of SIBs are out there. There's estimated to be 4.5 million siblings, and that's just based on the number of people with disabilities. If we are assuming one person per developmental per person with a developmental disability, knowing that some may have no siblings, some may have multiple siblings, so it's probably an underestimate actually. But and our experiences as SIBs really parallel our parents' experiences. We go through the whole acceptance process, and basically the same types of experiences that our parents have. But there tend to be support groups and so forth out there for, I think for parents, but not necessarily for siblings. So that's us. So, and with that, our concerns, like parents, go across a lifespan, right? We'll be talking about this a little more as we get into here, but it's from whether you're a toddler or you're a preteen, a teenager, or you're adults. Like I was going to say older adults. I'm not calling us older adults, adults like us. But our concerns and needs change across the lifespan. So we're going to spell that out for you guys tonight. And then really no person has a greater impact on somebody with a disability than us as their sibling, because we tend to spend the most time with them. As parents age, in the lifespan we spend more time. As parents age, they may sometimes outlive their child, but the siblings tend to spend the majority of their life together. So, and then if you look at, this, we're really a new need, I guess, right, for our groups like ours, because if you think back years ago, our people with disabilities were put in institutions and weren't as commonly at home and going to school, and so there wasn't really a need for support for us. Looking at, typically siblings as our parents age and may pass on, siblings, we a lot of time take on some sort of a caretaking role, even if it's like my brother lives in another state, right? So some sort of care management role, whatever that may look like. Each family is unique in that way. So. And then another thing about us is we're like this club sandwich generation, where we may be raising kids, caring for parents, and caring for our sibling as well. So we really, put this all together and bring it just to empower families to be able to support all of their children.
We did have one person put in the Q&A, and I'm sorry, it looks like the chat is disabled, y'all. My apologies.
Okay.
That he has a daughter who's disabled and another daughter who's 2 years younger. So, and then that's
Great.
the only response we've gotten so far there.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll talk about the littles also. So, a little more about Kaylin and I. I have this is my brother Robbie. He's my whole heart. I just love him to death. My brother has autism, primarily intellectual disability, and he does also have a seizure disorder as well, which finally we're getting under control. But I would say his intellectual disability now impacts him most in life, but he's been an amazing impact, not just on me, but my entire family. I have a very, very large family, and like over on the right, he's with my kids, he's with my cousin's kids and so forth. And he's 10 years younger than me, and just the reason I do what I do. So, and he did live with me for 11 years until I went back to school for my doctorate, and he's went back to live with my parents. Lived with me by my choice, I shall say, because he's my buddy. And Kaylin.
So this is my brother, Jonathan. So Jonathan was born typical, and then as a 3-year-old developed brain cancer. I was born right that same week because my parents needed something else to be juggling in life. In my whole life, Jonathan has lived with the after effects of the treatment of cancer. Had intellectual and physical disabilities. You can see his hair didn't return. So he wore a wig. He had hearing loss. He also developed epilepsy as a teenager, and many of those incidents and medical events are sort of imprinted deeply on my brain. And then Jonathan had a stroke when we were in our 20s, survived for 2 years after that, made it to my grad school graduation, but ultimately passed a few years after that. So California SIBS and this work has really become my way to channel that love and that energy I have for my brother. So it's not just us, there are celebs too. This is our People magazine moment of celebs are just like us. So, you know, whether it's some of these actors and actresses you see on the screen here, that really have this close connection with their siblings. Ava Longoria with her sister, she started a nonprofit related to after-school programs for people with special needs. Or Jamie Foxx sadly lost his sister a few years ago, but she was really a prominent part of his life, and he was a Down syndrome ambassador. And then Jake Matthews with his younger sister there, also with Down syndrome. It really just provides a perspective. Sometimes it provides a drive for us to achieve more. But ultimately, you know, we're all human and have these rich family lives going on, sometimes behind the scenes. So when we think about SIBS and the research that we have, gosh, sorry for the animation here. There are a number of things that we've come to learn about SIBS over time. So the first is really around maturity. So this is one that's often called out. And so when we talk with parents, they'll often say, oh, my kid is so mature, nothing to worry about there. So yes, that's great. We love mature children. And you know, there's always an overdone option around those strengths. So something to keep an eye out for. So, you know, a lot of that will carry into our adult lives and makes us great employees to be so patient and you know, show that responsibility. Tolerance and perspective. So really just thinking about the world in a different way and having a broader view on things than many of our classmates as we're children, and even as we grow into adults. So being able to appreciate that not everyone is going to be at what society defines as optimal performance at all times, or that everything is not going to be easy for all of us at all times. So really being able to understand that there is a different way to be in this world. Sense of humor, sometimes a warped sense of humor, but you know, there's a lot of you know, potential toileting issues or inappropriate exclamations or things that happen that you've just got to learn to roll with and find the humor in those situations. So families with disabilities are, you know, some of the funniest families I've known. Appreciation goes along with that tolerance and perspective a lot. So really just understanding there's different ways to be in the world and that they're not all easy, and that we've got to appreciate what we do have. Vocational, you'll find that a lot of us go into helping professions. So I'm in human resources, Nikki's in special education. We see a lot of healthcare as well. So finding a way to take that time and commitment and energy and education that we put into our careers and have it provide back into the world. Pride and optimism, again, part of that perspective taking, but being able to find pride in who we are, what we can be, as well as what we accomplish. I personally tend towards the silver lining. I'll never let someone end a vent or a complaint without finding that silver lining, and just again being able to see the bigger, broader picture. In terms of advocacy, that's where we really connect with a lot of SIBs for the first time. So the idea of being a SIB or finding a sense of identity around that is new for a lot of folks. But what they do know is that they have this connection to disability and to perhaps the injustices that they see in the world, or a need to stand up for their sibling on a very local, personal level. And so they'll be reaching out for resources or looking for volunteer opportunities and ways to get involved. So connecting and tapping into that advocacy interest is something that we definitely see emerge a lot, and sort of the first symptom, first connection of how we get build our community. And then lastly, loyalty. So again, things will happen out in public that maybe look different or you don't expect. And as a child, you may be deeply embarrassed about that, but ultimately, just about all SIBs will learn to find a connection to protection in those moments, and to fiercely protect their brother, sister, sibling with a disability, to stand up to bullies, to stand up to people staring in public. And, a lot of times as we go on to our adult lives, we'll have friends or spouses or others that will say, can't you just put some distance between your family? That's not your problem. But we'll fight you tooth and nail of why that is something that's super important to us and why we are loyal to our home family. Okay. So I think we're not maybe going to be able to get this in chat, but I'll ask you just to pause and reflect. Where have you seen this in your own family? Whether you've got young kids that are just starting to form their own personalities and have their own opinions, or you've got you're a SIB yourself, or you've got older kids. How does that show up? How can you be really proud of those strengths in your SIB that's in your life? And how can you watch out for those strengths being overdone and maybe relying on them a little too much? All right, Nikki.
Great. All right. Now we'll talk about concerns. And I think when we got the list of questions that came through, it's tended to be more concerns, right? If you have a concern, that tends to be what brings you here. So before I talk about these, I always like to go over, like, not every child, not every person is going to experience each of these. The strengths as well as the concerns are just something that, after interviewing lots of siblings, research has found, like, these common traits can happen. So, and they could happen at different times throughout the life. But so one thing, and it's probably the biggest one that I hear from parents, is resentment, right? Because the amount of attention that has to be given to the child that needs extra attention and care and so forth. So, and that, parents aren't always available. So that's one thing that you might see and think, that resentment can show up in very, very different ways. So, and increase to responsibilities. Another really big one is the parentification, right? Which is the child can turn into like another parent, right? When my brother moved in with me, okay, I'm a parent and a teacher. So I found myself, like, being his parent, being his teacher, and, like, working with him on how to count money and so forth. And then finally I had to stop because I saw it was impacting his and our relationship. And it was like, no, I'm your sister. I'm going to stay in this very straight lane. I'm going to support you. I'm going to come alongside you, but I'm still your sister, and make sure I stick to that role in his life. He has a mom. So, and the joke he used to say, like, if he didn't, shower when he needed to shower or something, the joke was like, I am your sister. I'm not your mom. I don't want to be your mom. So, you need to do it kind of thing. So, so that tends to be a big one also. And peer issues, embarrassment, right? Especially young, elementary, there's, like, even early teens, right? You just don't want to, like, all you want to be is the same. Like, don't make me any different than anybody else. We just all want to be the same. So it changes a little bit as you get older, high school and so forth, where you want to stand out and be unique kind of thing. But especially in the younger ages, you just want to be the same. And here you have this brother or sister that has this uniqueness, right? And that does not help you conform. So that's something to consider, especially I say when if your children go to the same schools, where, if in this case, it's a medical emergency might happen, or if there's a behavior that happens and, oh, your friend walks down the hallway and sees your brother or sister out in the hallway in the middle of a behavior, and like, what's wrong with your brother? I saw, so that's something. And then there's the need for communication, right? There's the how just giving age appropriate information about what's going on with the child, the sibling that needs extra support. So fear, will I catch it? This was somebody's question. So that tends to be a big one. My brother has autism. I feel like I'm always self-analyzing myself, like, wait, is that an autistic trait? Is that an autistic trait? So that is a very, very common thing for children and adults clearly to feel. So, and that's where we come back to the communication and, explaining it the best that you can. So, and the fear also, if there's aggression in the home, right? And safety, just, what could it possibly feel like growing up in a home that with that, can be a pretty intense level of aggression sometimes that happens in the home. So, and then isolation, that's that's a big one, where challenge to go out in public. If you're a parent on here, it's you got that on yourself. Like you get that. I don't have to tell you that. And then, but also for children, maybe not being able to invite their friends over, right? Or not being able to participate in typical events. I think about my brother's 10 years younger than me. So I think about, reflectively now, like, oh, I played extracurricular sports all the way up till the time I was about 12, 13. And though it was never directly said to me, now in hindsight, I think it's probably because like we could not leave my house with my brother. So there's also the guilt. So especially one of the big ones is if it's the child with the disability or the special needs is the older sibling, if the younger sibling starts to pass them developmentally. So that can have the sib experiencing guilt. So, and then I'm trying to touch more on the younger here for you guys, but and then another thing with guilt is did I give it to them? Like, oh, that one time I gave them that candy when you told me not to give them that candy, did I cause them to have this or something? So that's something to be out on the look for. But future concerns, that's kind of where I'm at, when you get to be older, like who's going to care for, I'm making plans with my parents. I'm very appreciative. I have parents that are having these conversations with me and about, what it's going to look like when, as my parents age and can no longer play that main role in my brother's life. And then will my child have the same, right? And I have 2 grown children. Now I'm on to with my children, like, hey, here's what, there's definitely a genetic link for autism, so it can go on for a couple generations. So loss and grief, especially if it's degenerative, right? Seeing this happen to be a young child, especially, and seeing this happen to somebody that you love and so close to you is tough. And that there's that fantasy you could feel over having a typical sibling relationship. I feel it a lot. I have an older sister. I'm the middle, and then my younger brother. And I wish it would be nice to have a typical brother sometimes. So I love my brother to death, and then pressure to achieve. I'm in an A right here. I'm calling myself out on this one. So I was that straight A student. I always felt I needed to be perfect, right? Learning more about myself and learning about what it is to be a sibling, I understand now that I really, even though I wasn't consciously thinking it, I really was seeing how overwhelmed my parents were, and I did not anything that I needed. Then I felt more like it was a burden. I didn't want to be a burden to my parents and add any more to them. So good. And yeah, our chat isn't working, I don't think. So if we just take a minute to reflect on those, what kind of traits do you see within your children?
People can use the Q&A if they want to comment, so that is working. So if anyone feels
Okay.
like adding anything, and then I can just read it out loud. If anyone is interested, feel free.
All right. Maybe we'll go ahead and continue on, and then if anything comes up, we'll address that.
Yeah. So we've given you the broad strokes across a lifetime of SIBs. So let's take a look of where some of these things will show up at different points. So I think several of you indicated in your pre-response that you have younger children. So when we're thinking about that preschool age, we start to see some of the questions about fairness or equal treatment showing up. So what you might see is some of the vocalization or symptoms that they're resenting that they're not getting as much time with you. And I think, again, some of the pre-questions touched on this. You might also see, like Nikki said, sort of that pressure to achieve and that acting perfect. Your kids may also go the other way. So we've debated this one sort of internally within our SIB community. The ones that find us, the ones that are in community with us, tend to be those acting perfect. And then a lot of us can also point to another sibling that we have, a neurotypical or a non-disabled sibling that just like pieced out, like, was the maybe the troublemaker growing up and then just sort of distance themselves from the family. So you'll hear us talk more about those that act perfect and overachieve and have, the weight of the world on their shoulders. There's also those that just need to distance themselves or act inappropriately in order to get parent attention. So be on the lookout for both. You may also see some of the very earliest signs of trauma that are starting to form at this point. And we've got the caution here that it's a possible, and we don't want to say that this is the destiny for everyone. But if you do see mystery ailments that are starting to show up, so no logical explanation for the stomach ache, or maybe it's my left ankle that hurts today, my right ankle that hurts tomorrow, some sort of physical symptoms that they're asking about because they know that medical attention is something that you're very attuned to. There may also be sort of increased or displaced fear, so things that shouldn't be as concerning to them, that may be some early signs of anxiety. And then we touched on the blaming self, or I wasn't supposed to turn on the light after dark and I did that, or I gave them the piece of candy, or whatever that silly thing is that, in a younger mind, might be attached to this. So how we combat some of those concerns, again, the developmentally appropriate information or age relevant information. So, we had the comment earlier about paralleling a lot of the processes that you as parents go through. But again, keep in mind, as kids, us SIBs don't have a whole lifetime of experience and context and the ability to understand medical documentation and some of those other advanced skills. We're young, we're just putting the world together for ourselves, and so we need things as simple and plain language as possible to help us really understand what's happening in our families. Quality time alone with parents, as we reflect back and ask sibs that are adults, what was the most important thing that your parents did in this situation? This is always at the top of the list. And from parents, it's always the number one concern of, I can't do this, or this is too hard for me because of medical appointments and, just all the many things going on in life. So what we're here to offer is that it doesn't have to be all the time. It doesn't have to be a long time. A lot of those sibs that are reflecting back on, what made the difference in their childhood, it was a special birthday, or it was a once a year tea at the hotel, or it was, it doesn't have to be as frequent as maybe you're beating yourself up as a parent. It's about making it a special moment with you, without the sibling involved. Find the grandparent or the babysitter or the whatever care that you need, respite, to make that a special alone time with 3 of you if there are 2 parents, or one-on-one if that's what works for you. Some other things that you can offer at this age, guidance on playing together. So, again, some of that fear might come up of, am I going to break them? So, supervising and offering some guidance and just really encouraging play to the extent that that's possible. And then validating their concerns. So a lot of anxiety is because you don't know what to do with that worry, that fear. You don't know how to contextualize it. You don't know, kind of can grow unhindered. So validating the accurate part of the concern, and then helping to set aside the part that isn't as warranted, can really be helpful in just helping a kid as they grow up to understand and contextualize their worries. Going on to elementary school age. So Nikki mentioned kind of this is where we start to see, I just want to be like everyone else. I just want to blend in. And so those differences are going to start to stand out. If there's any bullying or name calling, staring, any of those things that come up, that may trigger that sort of protective response. The embarrassment may show up more as withdrawing from the situation. So it can look a couple of different ways. It also will show up in the family or at home. So I had to load the dishwasher, but Johnny didn't have to load the dishwasher, or I had to make my bed, but even though Susie was off at her doctor's appointment, she didn't have to make her bed. So thinking about really where you can kind of hold the same rules as much as possible, or explaining why those rules are different, can be really important at this age. And then back to that idea of sort of the overachiever, the perfectionist, sometimes that will show up as minimizing successes and abilities, and some of that guilt about surpassing the ability of your sibling. So really wanting to stay small and quiet and in the corner, not make a big deal, not claim some of those things. So really, as a parent, part of your role is to call those things out, to help them feel that it's warranted, for them to be proud of themselves and to celebrate their accomplishments, and to notice when they might be trying to make themselves smaller. As we think about the teen years, so this is when developmentally, we start to not necessarily blend in and be the same as everyone, although there's still remnants of that. But it's also when we start to differentiate ourselves and start to relate to the broader world. So, you may be thinking as a teen about going to college, moving out, going to another state, or somehow, starting to physically separate from the family. And then the reflexive action there will be, oh, but they need me. Oh, but I can't go too far away. Oh, but I play this role in the family. So really, helping your non-disabled child to think about, it's fine. We are the parents. We will handle this. We will take care of this. Not to minimize the contributions they make, not to seem ungrateful for that, but really to give them permission if you see them sort of holding back on that. It can also show up as guilt, again, about sort of developmentally surpassing their siblings. or, being able to do things. Maybe they get invited to prom, and their sibling didn't. Maybe they can go to the water park and have some independence that their sibling can't. That can have that double-edged sword of feeling guilty about those experiences. And then in a healthy way, you may see that pushing away or wanting more independent time. So again, it's about finding what's right for your family, where your needs and your comfort and the abilities are, and really helping them to go through that appropriate distancing that they'll start to experience from the family. I mentioned some of these, what they need, but it can also include some of those advocacy opportunities. So whether that's inviting them to sit in on an IEP meeting, or, provide an insight that they notice to a doctor. It can also just be like, being part of your conversation the night before as you're planning between two spouses or two parents about what's going to happen. It's really an opportunity for you to legitimize that you see the value and the insight and the role that your non-disabled child plays within the family, to kind of foster that advocacy ability that's starting to emerge, and just to really invite them in at that same time that they're starting to pull away. During this time, they're also going to need role models. So again, we understand as parents that you're pulled in so many different directions. You may not be able to provide all of that time to kind of coach and be a trusted resource. So, that can look like aunts and uncles and grandparents and coaches and teachers. So really just kind of checking in about whether your child has someone that they can trust and that they can vent to and they can run things by. And then lastly, concrete plans. So, it's okay if you go to college. This is the plan. This is how we'll take care of the things that you do for our family, or plan making skills so that they can do that themselves. And then, I think a lot of you are not quite at this stage yet, but for us SIBs, as we enter adulthood, again, we're, finding our own lives aside from our birth family. We're starting to think about the aging of our own parents and what that might entail. We're, really wanting to establish our own sense of identity. And then eventually we'll start to get to those end of life concerns. So really, as you think about any transition, not just transition of your child with disabilities into their adulthood, but, subsequent transitions that will happen maybe in where everyone lives, or who plays different caregiving roles, providing warm handoffs, if you will, during those transitions, sharing information that you think people might know or your child might know that you just want to go over again, creating documentation, and then also attending to the emotional side of that. So how do you deal with these feelings? How do you deal with the life changes? And we recognize in this adulthood phase, as a parent, you may not be the primary person providing this to your child. And that's where, we as a SIB community come in with opportunities to share stories, to provide tools or, experiences of what has worked for us. And so, just reminding your children that SIB communities do exist, and we'll talk a bit more about what those look like in a minute. Okay. So here's kind of our punch list of, as a family, what can you do? First and foremost, stay alert. We've shared a lot of things that you might want to look out for. So we'll make sure that you've got a copy of these slides and can sort of use them to reflect on periodically. We know life is busy and that you don't always notice the small things. So really taking the intentional time to come back around and look for strengths to celebrate and concerns that you might want to watch out for. Opening the conversation, we'll share in a minute some conversation starters, but really just providing that space, even if it's those small moments, even if it's a car ride or a once a year, making sure that they know that the door is open for those conversations. This third one may be a little hard depending on your family dynamics, but we really encourage as much as possible for choice to be part of the equation. So, sometimes it may be, run and go get me this medicine or bring me the phone so I can call 911, right? Those things happen, right? You can't avoid that. But where it is possible to give choice to caregiving responsibilities, or, whether it's inviting friends over, going out for events, some of those decisions really making it the SIB their choice as much as possible. Information. So we talked about age appropriateness and really being forthcoming and offering with that information. Don't assume that we've got as much information as you as parents do, because we don't have as much life experience as you do. And there's a number of websites and books and videos and so forth, again, that we can connect you with that help on that journey. And then last, seek support. We all need support in life. This is not just a disability issue, but really making sure that there are trusted adults around, safe spaces to connect with peers and others. If it's, professional therapists or counselors or other resources as well. Just really recognizing that it's not just your child with a disability that you need to focus on and offer those supports and resources to, but we need them too as SIBs, and making sure that you're keeping an eye out for us.
Great. All right. Thanks, Kaylin. So that brings us to, as promised from Kaylin, we have some conversation starters for you as parents. And again, thinking of, these are just kind of a general, but thinking of the age, the developmental age of your child that you're starting these conversations with. So there is also, Kaylin, thumbs up if I'm right. This there's a handout that we'll be sharing. Yep. So however, I'll let Audrey, you can address how we can get handouts out at the end here. And then but things you can conversations that you could start with your child to start talking about this, right? Is like, do you feel pressure to help with your sibling? This is probably really pertinent in the teen years. As you know, I know myself, I did not go off to college, even though I was planning on it. I did not go off to college, mainly because I could not leave my brother. Not that I felt pressure to care for him, but as he was learning to talk, I had spent so much time with him that I was really the only one that understood his language. So yeah, just doing these check-ins. So, and how do you feel when, right? When we're in public and blank happens with your brother or sister, if we don't get to go do this because of your brother or sister, or there tends to be a lot of really cool stuff that can happen, events for the child with the specific need, but not always for the non-disabled or, the neurotypical child. Case in point, we at Google, right, Caitlin, when they have this big robotics event for children with special needs. And we came in and said, like, hey, if you want to include the siblings of these people, California Sibs will come in and support you in that. So that was really, really cool experience. So think about that, and how those experiences can be inclusive for all your children sometimes. And then, do you feel comfortable talking with me or another adult if you're upset or stressed about things that are going on? Those, I can't tell you. I am so appreciative that my parents flooded me with adults, other adults in my life, whether it be my parents' friends that took me under their wing sometimes, or, I had a very large family as well. So, and then noticing, right? Getting back to that, noticing them. And that's it. Explicitly say it makes me really proud when you put a lot of effort into your studying, or you're being kind to people and asking them, help them self-identify. What are you most proud about yourself? So, and then just like Kaylin had mentioned before, the check-ins, like we know that, you know, we all at times can be overwhelming. It's really, I think, kind of facilitating that team effort and not letting the child take it on the responsibility on their own sometimes. So children's imagination can be quite wild sometimes. So they may think that they have to do it all or something. So yeah, those are some great, we have a lot more on the handout. So hopefully if you need those, they are there for you. And then if you're a professional and are attending this, what can you do to support SIBs, right? So you can provide families with guidance on how to include their brothers, sisters in play together, right? Or whatever the activity may be. And then support parents with just additional information about the experience of SIBs, right? You have it after this webinar. You have it. You have tools. You can have handouts. We share information on different places to go to find resources. So include, interact, and welcome SIBs as desired during interventions that may be going on, right? And this is where me as a professional, I'll tell a quick little story because I think we have time about being in, I was facilitating a toddler groups where parents and toddlers with autism came. And there was a probably 8 to 10-year-old child that was there also. And we're doing a little snack time. And I commented to the older sibling that was helping the young child about, like, wow, you're such a great helper for your brother. And they're like, yeah. And then I caught myself, because the only way that I was validating and interacting with their presence in the room was in how they related to their younger sibling their sibling with the autism. So I had to put myself in check, and then go and I made a point later to say, so what do you like to do for fun, and really connect with them as an individual with a separate identity than being a SIB. So allowing them to be their own person. And I wanted to let them know that I saw them as their own person also. So that's just something to keep in mind. And some SIBs may not want to participate in interventions and so forth. So, and then connect families and SIBs with like communities. I think a couple slides back, there was SIB shops, and I think we go over that at the end also. So SIB shops is a great one. And I understand from Audrey, there's a sibling, they have a group also. But so connecting to like communities. You know, you as parents, you probably have some sort of support network or support group. And think of just kind of building that same thing for your other children. So, and then the last one to recognize, I kind of touched on already, but recognizing the strengths of the SIB not related to the role as a SIB. So make sure that they're recognized and validated for their individuality. All right, and something you learned today that you could use with the SIB in your family, and I think maybe just reflect on that and think about how you might be able to take this and move forward with the information you have today. And then
Yeah, and just to wrap up, so I know you all are from various parts of the country. So we are California SIBS. There is a counterpart to us in most of the states, as well as the National Sibling Leadership Network. Our groups tend to be a little heavier on the adult SIB part of the community, but we do try to offer information that is relevant to all ages. So if you want to follow us on any of our social media, we're on all the platforms, you'll find information there. For those of you with younger children that may be looking to connect them with the SIB shops that we mentioned, siblingsupport.org, which is the website in the top right corner, is the host of that platform, and they have links to all of the local offerings. For those of you in California, we do have connections on our website as well to a virtual offering throughout the state of California. There is also a number of Facebook groups. The three that you see featured here, SIBNet is the main one for all ages over 18. There's also SIB-Teen and SIB-20 groups that have the appropriate level of moderation for those audiences. And then we know kids these days are not really on Facebook. So there are Discord groups and other platforms that are starting to pop up more organically. We don't have any sponsored ones through our major organizations. But if you do a search for sibling with special needs or kind of the variations of that phrase, you'll find some additional offerings as well. So I think we've got a few minutes. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that if you connect with us at California SIBS, the majority of our events and informational sessions that we do are virtual, and the majority of them are directed toward adult siblings, but there are some things that we just open up to all parents, everybody. So you're welcome to connect with us.
That was
and then with that,
and so helpful. I'm going to reflect on your question about kind of something that came up for me. I don't know if it's something that I learned per se, but I was thinking about on the list of strategies that you had. One of the things that we always did with our son when he was younger, our son Bennett, who had a hemispherectomy, he's now almost 20, starting at a very young age, like 3. Every year he would go in and speak to his class about his disability. And I think it really helped his brother because there was conversation so that there was knowledge about him, so that they weren't always running to the little brother saying, what's up with your brother? Why does he wear a brace? Why does he walk with a limp? Why does he not hear me when I'm talking to him? Whatever it is, right? Because he had did a little introduction himself. And also it just opened up the conversation. We worked really hard to make our son a good self-advocate and not be afraid to talk about any aspect of his disability and not be embarrassed about it. So I think that really helped. Not every child has that ability to speak for themselves. So I totally get that. But in our case, I do think it helped my younger son. And then one thing I'll add, one of the things I'm really excited that California SIBS is doing is this new guide, the OSK, that is coming out soon, the O something kit. And,
oh shoot.
So excited about that because I also fear as a parent, and I'm sure a lot of the parents on here may feel this as well, the burden of caretaking my older son on my younger son. And he's only 17. I think it was around 11 years old when he said to me, so Mom, am I going to have to take care of Bennett when you die? And I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I hope not. And, we're putting plans in place and whatever, but I think being very realistic about the long-term needs of your child and what the role of the siblings would be. And if they can have a role, if you want them to have a role, what protections you can put in place for the sibling as well. Because I think we often think about, what am I going to do with my child who has a disability? But I think it's just really important to bring the siblings into that conversation. So if anyone does have any questions, just throw them in the chat, but we're just going to keep talking unless anything pops up.
Yeah. And I'll say, as well as you think you have planned, it was a wake up call for me. I was very, very involved with my brother all the way, like by the time he was in, later school age, I was at the IEPs with him, and, I was always talking to my mom, and when my parents left, I was like, first doctor appointment I took him to alone, I was like, holy cow, do I know all of his health history? Am I missing anything on here? And so
Yeah.
even though you think you're like, well, it's so nice to have that just written down,
Yeah.
so you don't miss little things here and there. I was fortunate enough, my parents were still alive and in clear mind, and I could reach out to them, but that's not always the case
Yeah.
for a lot of us. So
I just want to let everyone know Julie Newer just showed up on screen. She's a co-panelist tonight because she is going to be doing our presentation next month, which everyone needs to come to. I can't remember what the long title of your presentation is, but it's the Us2 presentation. I'll just call it that, about sexual abuse in the disability community. And that can have a huge impact on the siblings as well. Just going back to what we were just saying. So, future planning is something we've done some webinars on. Again, making sure the sibling is part of whatever the future plan is. Now, my younger son's only 17, so he's had limited input, but we have asked him, what do you envision your role? His answer was, I don't want to take care of my brother. And that's a very valid thing for a teenager to say. So we've said, okay. And we'll probably re-ask him that question every 5 years for the next, till we die. And his role may change over time. But it's also really valid if the sibling says, I don't want that responsibility, to figure out a way to get that support elsewhere if you can, right? Because no one wants to be burdened with something that they feel they can't handle for whatever reason. Julie, did you have anything to add? Is that why you jumped on? Or are you just here to say hi?
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm just here to give support to Kaylin
Okay.
and Nikki and see if there's any questions that I may be able to jump in on if they can't, but you have the seasoned professionals here.
Yeah. So something
There
did
is
come up in the chat and the Q&A, which is just same question. My 13-year-old son asks me about his younger sibling who's 8 and has had a hemispherectomy. Mama, who is going to take care of him when you're gone? And so I think that's just such an important thing to think about. I don't have an answer for you, Mom. Just ask that question. I'll leave you unnamed for the recording. But just again to say, we do have a future planning webinar. I'm always available as the parent, patient, and family advocate of our organization to help you with understanding things you can put in place to protect your child with a disability and the sibling in the long run. And that it's really important that you take those steps so that your non-disabled child doesn't feel that they're obligated to do something that maybe they're not equipped to do. And part of your planning might include training for the sibling on what they need to do, or connecting them with California SIBS, or connecting them with the oh shoot kit, or whatever it ends up being, so that there is some preparation, but at an age appropriate time. Like my son, who's 17, I still don't think it's age appropriate for me to start. He knows, like, in his heart what the real answer is, but for right now it's like, yeah, okay, you don't have to do anything. I'm not putting you in that position.
And Audrey, I'll applaud you for you made the comment that you'll ask every few years. Again, that's such an important consideration, that this isn't a once and done, forever answer. Things are going to change. Life is going to change. The answers, your desire is going to change. So making sure that everyone knows that it is a fluid plan, that there's some level of certainty, right? That you don't have to be sort of flailing in the wind, but that you could revisit that and change your mind at any time.
One question that did come in advance, I think you answered all the other one, but was when the parent is traveling for days or even weeks at a time for medical appointments for one child, how that impacts the children at home, and the parent was concerned about possible abandonment issues. And I think you did touch on this, but I'm wondering if you might have anything to add. It's such a big topic, and I mentioned before we started tonight that the children in our community of epilepsy surgery, some of them have very minor disabilities or mild disabilities, but some of them are very significantly physically, intellectually, medically, complicated individuals. And so I think it's an important question. And do you have any thoughts on that kind of that abandonment issues idea, or things that can be done proactively other than what you've already discussed? Because I know you did touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things, because I was the child that I had 1 day a year with my mom, and I so valued that. It was not even my older sister; it was my mom and I would spend 1 day together, and it was typically going to an outlet and over on the coast to go school shopping, right? But it was just me and my mom, and I had her whole attention for that day. So yeah, just I think to reiterate that it doesn't have to be, maybe there's like some ritual when I come back from these long trips, then we get to have a dinner out together or something, somehow to make sure that they know, like, hey, I value you as well.
Yeah.
And I recognize that this takes a lot of time. So
one thing that came up in our sibling pilot program, and then in our sibling support group that we've been running this past year, the sibling pilot program was the previous year, was the siblings, all of them across the board, these are all teens, were saying that they felt like they were more informed about what was going on with their sibling. So that would be one thing I would think of, like the other siblings will feel less abandoned if they really know what's happening. And I think as parents, we often try to protect the other sibling by not telling them, because we don't want to scare them. And all of them across the board said, we know what's going on. We know when it's serious. We know when it's life-threatening. We know when it's scary, because we can see it on your face. We can read you like a book. And so not telling us just gives us more fear and more worry. So we really need to be part of it. And one young woman even said, I'm the one that I know my brother better than my parents do. So they're not asking me what's going on or telling me this is going to happen, then I can say, well, actually, no, you can't do that sedation with this, because he really needs this teddy bear. And if you try to do it with that one, it's not going to happen. So like really bringing the siblings in. I think that can be really hard for parents. They're scared of that. So you might need some support on how to do that. So if you can get a therapist to help you, sometimes the social worker in the pediatric brain center or epilepsy center where you are, your children's hospital, can facilitate some family conversations that might be the parent and the typical sibling on how do we start to have these conversations, or maybe even just the parent initially. I don't know if any of the sibling leadership network offers anything like that about how to talk to the sibling about the other sibling's disability or medical needs, but that would be a great topic down the road if it's not already out there. So yeah, just really important to remember that they even from very little, they see all, they know all about what's happening.
Yeah,
you can't really hide it from them. So
yeah, 100%. And I would add, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. And again, choice, adjust, revisit. So I was the type that was brought along to a lot of doctor's appointments, and I appreciated that because I did feel like I had, something I wanted to offer or say. I wanted to hear kind of the explanation firsthand, and get that additional information. And there were some procedures that I probably shouldn't have witnessed that were a little too invasive for my young self to be there. So, there for some of it, not there for all of it, and talk about it. Talk is really important to help process that, and to take away the rumination and the concerns and shame and worry and guilt and all those emotions that come with it. And again, bring in professional help if you feel like that's warranted or needed.
And if any family has a need for that, I can be a resource to help connect you. So you can always reach out directly to me. So yeah. All right, we're a little bit over time, so I think we should wrap up. This was such a great presentation. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm really grateful for your time. Such an important topic. I'm also a sibling of my brother had serious mental illness. And so, I know now how important this is, and I'm really glad we're able to provide this for families whose kids are much younger, and provide those supports across the lifespan. And I'm super excited about the Oh Shoot kit coming out, and I'm super excited about Julie speaking next month to our community. And just thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us, Audrey.
Thank you.